Welcome to our one-on-one segment. I hope by now you know Tim Linafelt. He joined us a couple of weeks ago. If you go to Seminoles.com, our official website, you'll recognize his face, certainly recognize his writing. He writes about all the Florida State athletic events. We want you to go there each and every day, and he's been writing a lot about spring football. That's what we're here to talk about right now. And I'll begin by saying the Rose Bowl game was a fantastic game. The inaugural college football playoff, not fantastic in terms of the score for Florida State, but to have gotten there, it certainly was, within one step of the national championship game. But coming off that field were a lot of players who are not coming onto the field this spring. A lot of players that went out early, a lot of players that have graduated. Kind of a new team, as Coach always talks about.
Yeah, it really does sort of feel almost a little bit like a changing of the guard when you're talking about a team that reeled off the longest winning streak in school history, and a lot of those guys now are off preparing for the draft. We're waiting to hear their name called later this month. So a lot of new faces, a lot of position battles out there on the practice fields, and obviously at the forefront is the quarterback position, where Jameis Winston, of course, is no longer there, preparing to.
There's a news flash. Okay.
Preparing to potentially be the number one player selected in the NFL draft, and now the task is replacing one of the great players in school history, and right now there are four players sort of vying for that job. It starts with Sean Maguire, the redshirt junior. He's the only quarterback on the roster with any in-game experience, so I do kind of feel that he deserves to be the front runner, and probably is the front runner, just as the guy who has done it before. But aside from him, there's John Franklin III, J.J. Cosentino, and the true freshman early enrollee DeAndre Johnson. All those guys are getting in the mix and getting some work, and whoever those guys, whichever one of those guys wins the job, they're going to be doing it behind four brand new offensive linemen, as Cameron Irving, Trey Jackson, Josue Matias, and Bobby Hart have also graduated and are ready to take the next step to professional football. So a lot of turnover, but a lot of talent, and just some guys who are waiting for their opportunity to show what they can do.
Yeah, and you think about Sean Maguire, and you go back to that Clemson game last year. He thinks he's only going to play probably the first half at one point, finds out the day before he's going to play the entire game, then plays a Clemson defense everyone thought was great. As you look at the statistics at the end of last year, they were really great. One of the best defenses in the country he played against that day, and they threw the kitchen sink at him. He played a really good ball game, and probably a lot better ball game from the coach's film's eyes than from those of us in the stands. So you got Maguire, who looks like he certainly has the experience coming out of the spring, but whoever's back there at quarterback is looking at four different rear ends than were there last year. There's only one guy, that big guy on the far left, Rod, is back at left tackle, but all the rest of them are going to be newcomers in a sense. They've been in the program for a couple of years.
It's kind of interesting. We were chatting with Roderick the other day about Roderick Johnson. It wasn't too long ago he was the new guy in an offensive line full of veterans, and now he's the veteran with about 5 games under his belt, and he's the most experienced guy there. There are a few guys filling in there, some junior college transfers who do have at least some playing experience, not at this level, but between Kareem R. and Chad Movetti, they do have some guys that have played college football before, and then a handful of other guys filling in some of those other spots and getting some reps, particularly at the center spot. I think is still up for grabs, and one to keep an eye on this afternoon, see who gets those first team reps and how they cycle in and out.
And you get it, throw it over to the other side of the football, and again, you've got some really high-profile, important, key people no longer in the lineup, including both the cornerbacks.
Yeah, and it's an interesting time there as well. The kind of a shuffle going on in the secondary. Jimbo Fisher revealed earlier on this spring that he's planning on having Jalen Ramsey move over to one of those cornerback positions vacated by Ronald Darby and P.J. Williams, and I think that move makes a lot of sense. Jalen is a guy who can play every position in the secondary, has played every position in the secondary, but I think the line of thinking goes there. They're going to start him at that boundary corner position, the short side of the field, and essentially, if all goes according to plan, he can take that side of the field away, take away whatever receiver is over there, and if he can kind of do that, then you're in a situation to run the other side where it's a kind of a rotation right now between Marquez White and Ryan Green, who moved from running back to cornerback this spring. Those two guys are sort of competing, and also I think really sort of elevating each other in this new spot, and if Jalen Ramsey can hold things down as the veteran on the other side, it makes life a little bit easier for those newcomers who are trying to get adjusted.
Well, one of the guys that's going to cushion the blow on both sides of the ball is the return of Lou Groza kicker Roberto Aguayo, who has been fantastic throughout his career. He's good for points. He's good for putting the other teams in bad positions. And if you enjoy Tim's insight in what's going on with Florida State football and all our other sports, go to Seminoles.com every day. Click on what Tim's writing and everyone else and all the digital information, videos, and that you can find right there on our very own official website. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be right back on Seminole Sports Magazine.